Thanks for joining me again. This weekend, we celebrate the 250th anniversary of our nation's independence. It's a remarkable milestone, and like most anniversaries, it's an opportunity to celebrate our successes, but also to reflect honestly on how far we've come, how far we still must go. Making progress in our nation has never moved in a straight line. We've expanded rights, we've also taken steps backwards. We've corrected mistakes, and sometimes we've had to fight the same battles more than once. The Supreme Court reminded us of that this week. They were reminders that promises written into our Constitution don't automatically protect themselves. Every generation has had to decide whether we're going to live by those promises or to narrow them. Despite the current trends in the federal government, when I think about Montgomery County, I'm optimistic. This community has always been shaped by people who challenged the status quo and made America better than they found it. Josiah Henson escaped from slavery and helped others find freedom. Rachel Carson changed the way the world thinks about protecting our environment. Clara Barton devoted her life to caring for people in their greatest moments of need. And Thurgood Marshall, long before being the first Black Supreme Court Justice, he fought for equal pay for Black teachers in Montgomery County. His work ensured to make the Constitution mean what it said, that every person deserves equal protection under the law. Today, we continue that tradition. Our scientists search for cures. Our teachers prepare the next generation. Our first responders answer calls every hour of every day. People from every corner of the world have built their lives here because they believe this country could continue becoming a more perfect union. That's why I remain optimistic, even during difficult times. Being patriotic isn't pretending our country's perfect, it's believing it's worth improving. That's the lesson of the last 250 years. Every generation has been asked to leave America stronger, fairer, and more just than they found it. I was pleased to welcome Congressman Jamie Raskin back to my media briefing this week. Congressman Raskin has long been a champion of the Constitution and our democratic institutions. And here are some of the thoughts he shared with us.
It's going to be a long walk home, as Springsteen reminded us when he came to town and sang. I mean, we're not going to be able to reverse all the damage overnight. I mean, look at our constituents who worked at AID all over the world, who were, summarily fired. Their projects against hunger, against HIV/AIDS, against malaria, just blown to smithereens by Elon Musk and by Doge and Donald Trump. A lot of those people have left the government. Would they come back? I don't know. How are you going to rebuild the relationships with all those countries? I don't know. Same thing with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which saved American consumers tens of billions of dollars from systematic white-collar fraud. A lot of our constituents have been hurt in the demolition of CFPB. In their work, same thing at the Department of Education, at NIH. We've been in a struggle from the beginning to defend those programs and defend those grants. And I said to Trump, how can you be attacking the programs doing research on the killer diseases of our day, like cystic fibrosis and multiple sclerosis and breast cancer and malignant narcissistic personality disorder? I mean, we're not going to make progress on anything if we are cutting the heart out of the NIH budget. So we are going to rebuild. We must rebuild, and we're going to have to rebuild on a stronger basis and make everything better so that we're never vulnerable to an attack like this again.
We're working hard to ensure that this year's county fireworks celebrations continue despite the forecast for extreme heat. The county's hosting two events. The Montgomery County 250th Shine Together celebration on Friday, July 3rd will be held at Albert Einstein High School in Kensington, and one of my favorite bands, the Nighthawks, will be performing. The concert begins at 7:30 p.m. On Saturday, July 4th, Up County will have its own celebration with Germantown Glory starting at 7:30. That will be at the Big Park in Boyd's as we mark Montgomery County's 250th anniversary. I encourage residents to visit our special website dedicated to the milestone, montgomerycountymd.gov/Montgomery-250, and take some time to learn our history, appreciate our progress, and celebrate together. Thankfully, these events are not happening during the heat of the day, and even so, we're delaying the usual start of each event to beat the heat. Earlier this week, county leaders held a press conference to stress the importance of taking the heat seriously. It's important to remember to stay hydrated, watch for signs of illness, and limit your time outdoors during the hottest parts of the day. While most county buildings will be closed Friday and Saturday for the holiday weekend, we will be opening some buildings to act as cooling centers. More information on those locations and the operating hours can be found later in this newsletter. Other reminders include: do not leave kids or pets alone in the car. Avoid strenuous activities in the heat of the day, like exercising or gardening. If you're outside, protect yourself by wearing light-colored clothing, a hat, sunglasses, and sunscreen. Check on your neighbors, friends, family, and particularly those who live alone and those who may be at higher risk of heat-related illnesses. Let's all help each other stay safe. You can stay on top of heat-related warnings, closures, and updates by signing up for Alert Montgomery. Our county website will provide updates if there are any additional changes, so stay tuned. Over the last week or so, we've had some shameful decisions handed down by the Supreme Court, but I want to start with a rare win before focusing on the negative. The Supreme Court has thankfully reaffirmed a promise this country has kept ever since 1868. Every child born on American soil is an American. The fact that this was in jeopardy is sad and a warning. Relief is not the same as safety. A basic constitutional promise should not be something our families have to win back every few years. This matters deeply here in Montgomery County, where 4 in 7 children have at least one immigrant parent, the vast majority of them born in the United States. The ruling means their citizenship and their children's is secure, not subject to the politics of the moment. Maryland was part of the coalition of states that stood up for that principle, and I'm glad they did. We also learned that the court won't even look into whether this administration followed the law when it stripped temporary protective status, or TPS, from our Haitian and Syrian neighbors. That closes the courthouse door and it pulls away legal protections that stood between every other TPS holder and the same fate. This decision was specifically about our Haitian neighbors, but it affects 33,000 plus Marylanders who have TPS status, people from El Salvador, Honduras, Venezuela, Syria, Somalia, and more, many of whom have built their lives here for decades. And many of those countries I listed are human rights disasters. And when you think of Haiti, which is a country that has been so damaged, mostly by United States interference in their internal affairs for decades and decades and decades, it is no wonder the place is a total disaster. And no surprise that people seek to get out of there. And it's just a shame that we take no responsibility for it. They pay taxes. All these folks are here. They raise their kids as U.S. citizens. They keep our hospitals, job sites, and restaurants running. Now they can be told that they can be sent back to the countries that aren't safe. Losing TPS means losing your work permit and your legal right to be here. Someone with a home, a job, and children can now be detained and deported at any time. We're talking about our neighbors, co-workers, and friends. What's happening to them is cruelty dressed up as policy. The court also ruled that the government can turn away asylum seekers before they ever reach U.S. soil, denying families fleeing violence the chance to ask even for safety. Seeking asylum isn't a crime, it's a right written into our laws. Montgomery County will remain a place that meets people fleeing harm with dignity, not a closed door. Montgomery County doesn't ask about immigration status when you come to us for help. Our local laws keep county resources out of federal deportation efforts. Our health and human services stay open to every resident, regardless of status. We can't undo decisions made in Washington, but no one here is going to have to face it alone. If you or someone else you love has a TPS, don't panic or act on rumors. We're working through what this ruling means for our residents, and we'll share clear guidance soon. In the meantime, check your status at uscis.gov. Talk to a trusted legal provider before you make decisions, and reach out to the Gilchrist Immigrant Resource Center for accurate information and real help. I was disappointed by the Supreme Court's decision to uphold laws in West Virginia and Idaho that keeps transgender athletes from girls' and women's sports teams. Many transgender residents, especially young people in Montgomery County, now feel isolated and singled out. I want our transgendered community to know that you are seen, you are valued, and you remain an important part of the county. History shows that progress toward equal rights has rarely followed a straight line. It has come because people refuse to give up on the principle that every individual deserves dignity and equal protection. Montgomery County will continue to stand with our LGBTQ plus community, and we will continue working with our schools, healthcare providers, community organizations, and advocates to make sure that every young person knows that they have a place here. No one should lose hope for a more just future. And I'm deeply concerned about the ruling that further eviscerates the county's campaign finance laws, a process that began with Citizens United ruling more than 15 years ago. Here in Montgomery County, we've seen campaign seasons, including this one, with obscene amounts of spending. And while it's not always successful, it threatens to drown out the voices of voters and to distort information. July 1st brought another important update to those making it the least in our county. That update is in their paychecks. It is by design. We use the new fiscal year to make minimum wage adjustments that reflect our commitment to building an economy that works for everyone. When wages keep pace with inflation, working people aren't forced to fall further behind as everyday costs rise. Back in 2017, when I was on the council, I sponsored the legislation that ties our minimum wage to the Regional Consumer Price Index. Every March 1st, the rate gets recalculated based on how much costs went up the year before. That means that when rent goes up, groceries go up, and everyday costs rise, wages for our lowest paid workers rise with them. They don't just fall behind further and further. I believe this is one of the most important things we can do as a local government. If the federal minimum wage had been indexed to inflation decades ago, we probably wouldn't be in this situation today or needed to pass the law. But it wasn't. And wages stagnated for years while costs kept climbing. The actual federal minimum wage today is still $7.25. I don't think anybody could imagine living on that here. So we did something about it here. This also isn't just good for workers, it's good for our local economy. When people have a little more money in their pocket, they spend it. It doesn't stay there. And that supports the small businesses that depend on that spending. It also gives employers predictability because they know how the rate will move each year rather than being surprised by it. At a time when federal policy is letting billionaires get wealthier by the minute, I'm proud that Montgomery County has a law that at least makes sure our lowest paid workers don't lose ground. I do want to keep in mind that a minimum wage law does have one serious flaw. If you're concerned about how it impacts a person's ability to live here, the majority of the council voted to allow rents to rise up to 3% above the inflation rate, while minimum wage still remains tied to the inflation rate. That means that most burden of our residents living on minimum wage will find themselves falling behind on affordability if their landlord raises rents above inflation. Not all landlords do, but many do, making it harder for them to afford rents in this county. We've seen over the last several days the heroism on display in Venezuela as people search for missing loved ones following a devastating earthquake. In Montgomery County, many of our neighbors are grieving for their impacted countrymen who have been affected by this devastation. Our hearts are with the families who have lost loved ones, those who are injured, and everyone facing uncertainty in the days ahead. For community members who wish to help, relief experts recommend contributing to financially well-established organizations, as the challenges on the ground make it difficult to deliver donated goods. Trusted organizations providing aid include the Catholic Relief Services, IOM UN Migration, and JRS USA. In moments like this, every dollar entrusted to an experienced relief partner can make a meaningful difference. Thank you for your compassion and generosity and solidarity during this difficult time. So that's a wrap for today. I know these days we're in right now are going to be pretty miserably hot. Looks like 3 days of 100 degrees or more. Hope you stay safe, hope you stay cool and enjoy a festive holiday weekend, and I'll be back again next week.